November 13th.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers have put up some impressive numbers during their 7-1 postseason. In the last 3 playoff games, the Dodgers have trailed for just 1 inning. In the 2 games at Milwaukee, the Brewers had only 2 base runners in scoring position. Both of those were in Game 1. Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Blake Snell combined for 16 shutout innings, 17 strikeouts, and 1 walk in the 2 games at Milwaukee. The Brewers have only 4 hits in the 2 games. Can the Dodgers starting pitchers keep this up? We'll find out tomorrow. Tyler Glasnow gets the start for Game 3. First pitch tomorrow at 3 o'clock. LA native Russell Westbrook is returning for his 18th NBA season. Westbrook signed a 1-year deal with the Sacramento Kings for the veteran minimum of $3.6 million. Westbrook will be 37 in November. He holds the NBA record for the most triple plays with 203. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis Smiley with a final word here about the upcoming Left Coast Forum on Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. As you know by now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolf and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries: fighting for Black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts, and building patient power from seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA, theater as a force for change, voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing, racism on the left, building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County, Committee for the First Amendment, and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Try to keep it coming. Things ain't always new. Oh, but I'll be all right as long as I can find the good. Yes, I will. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you. Talk to me back in style again.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me. Back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavismiley.com. That's thetavismiley.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. It's Thursday, so it's Smiley and West at the top of hour 2. 30 years ago today, Dr. West spoke at the Million Man March in the nation's capital. We'll get his reflections and unpack a few more items when he joins us 1 hour from now. And then on the B side of hour 2.
My grandfathers, my fathers, my brothers, I lift up my voice and raise it high, telling the stories of your children's cries. our ability to survive the onslaught of the enemy's drugs, guns, and alcohol, his prisons and his killing fields, depends directly on whether you are willing to stand up and resist the outrages that are being heaped upon us as a people and build a new society. Yes, the task is difficult. The odds are against you. But you must organize to find a way or make your own way. You must change today so that tomorrow may dare to be different. And when you have fought back and regained your pride, when you have won some battles, when you are able to tell the stories of your heroism, when you can pass on to your young the tradition of struggle through examples of your having stood up for a better tomorrow, when you take control of our institutions, our media, our schools, when you maximize our economic resources towards our own benefits, when you stop making excuses, when you start standing with our mothers, when you stick it out with your families, when you start mentoring our young, when you start teaching us to be humane, then we can build a new nation of strong people.
Allende John Baptiste was the 12-year-old speaker at the Million Man March who stole the show 3 decades ago. He joins us today, 3 decades later, on the backside of Hour 2. In our third hour, 2 more conversations. We first celebrate Black Poetry Day with Matabu Okanta, professor and chair of Kent State University's Department of Africana Studies. His latest book is A Black Voice in the Wilderness. On the B side of Hour 3, National Co-Chair of Black Women for Positive Change, Dr. Stephanie Myers, on October as Nonviolence Month and the perennial quest for peace on earth. But in this first hour, let's talk politics and more with Connie Rice, celebrated civil rights attorney and towering public intellectual. Before I bring Connie on the line, get this clock, Miles. Let's see if we can make it. You think so? All right. There's a clip I want to play right quick of the brilliant Ketanji Brown Jackson. So let me just set this up very quickly, and Connie can unpack when we come forward. So Brett Kavanaugh, Supreme Court Justice, obviously conservative, raises the notion that race remedies ought to have a time limit. Race remedies ought to have a time limit. Talking here about the oral hearing yesterday on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Kavanaugh argues race remedies ought to have a time limit. And then Ketanji Brown Jackson, in her brilliance, lays out how Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act is supposed to work. Take a listen.
I guess I wonder if it would be helpful, at least as I'm thinking about it, because I think this is a very important question. To understand, I think that you're saying that Section 2 is not a remedy in and of itself. It is the mechanism by which the law determines whether a remedy is necessary.
That's absolutely correct.
So it's a law that is just encouraging or requiring a check-in. It's like a tool. It's like a tape measure that we're looking as to whether or not certain circumstances exist. And those circumstances that Congress is worried about is unequal access to electoral opportunity. And Section 2 tells you we have to look for those circumstances. And then the court says, yep, they exist in this situation under Section 2. And so now a remedy is required. And in our case law, we then say, okay, state, it's up to you to figure out what that remedy will be. And maybe that remedy involves race consciousness, maybe it doesn't, whatever. But Section 2 itself is just the measure by which we determine that a remedy is required.
That's absolutely correct.
And so that's why it doesn't need a time limit, because it's not doing any work other than just pointing us to the direction of where we might need to do something.
That's right. And its usage becomes less and less as we see racially polarized voting and residential segregation decreasing. The Katz amicus brief in this case shows that in the past decade, Section 2 cases have decreased by 50%.
Because the plaintiffs can't make the showing. I mean, it's a pretty significant showing to establish that unequal opportunity of electoral processes is happening in a situation.
That's correct. Jingles is an exacting test. It is data obsessive. It brings in experts and many other forms of evidence to establish a racial violation. There are many cases where the plaintiffs fail in bringing the Jingles 1 precondition or Jingles 2 or Jingles 3 before they even get to the
So if we're
totality of
talking about a
circumstances.
time limit, you would say maybe it's with respect to the remedy that is used to respond to the problem that we've identified under Section 2. But the Section 2 tape measure itself doesn't need a life cycle. It's just,
No.
yeah.
That's correct. I mean, the 15th Amendment is permanently enshrined in our Constitution, and Section 2 is there to effectuate that prohibition of race discrimination on voting and does not require a time limit.
Thank you.
Lord Jesus, that's KBJ doing her thing. That is some brilliant legal nuance. I'll let Connie unpack it when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Seems like there's more identity theft in the news every day.
Another major healthcare breach was reported today, resulting in the exposure. 1 in 4 consumers have been a victim of identity.
That's because there are endless places that could accidentally expose you to identity theft, in a breach, or simply by mistake. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Stop settling for weak sound. It's time to level up your game and bring the boom. Hit the town with the ultra-durable LG X Boom portable speaker and enjoy vibrant sound wherever you go. Elevate your listening experience to new heights because, let's be real, your music deserves it. The future of sound is now with LG X Boom. And for a limited time, save 25% at LG.com with code FALL25. Bring the boom. X Boom.
I can't believe how spotless my floors look after using the Swiffer Power Mop. No more dragging around a heavy mop and messy bucket. Now I get the same deep clean without all the work. Thanks to the powerful solution and scrubbing pad of the Swiffer Power Mop, dirt and grime don't stand a chance, and I don't break a sweat. Mic drop. Mop drop.
Swiffer Power Mop. Swiffer Power Mop.
A smarter way to mop. Try it or your money back.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. We've all had that epic rideshare experience. Halfway through the trip, you know their heartbreak, their career path, and they know your aspirations to go find yourself in Portugal. It's human. We're all looking for connection, for someone to listen. But sometimes the people we spill our hearts to aren't exactly equipped to help us through it. With over a decade of data-backed experience from helping millions of people, BetterHelp matches you with a therapist based on your needs and goals. No asking for recommendations or endless scrolling through listings. Simply answer a few questions online and you'll be matched with a therapist, often in as little as 48 hours. Join over 5 million people worldwide who've trusted BetterHelp for their mental health and well-being. Get a therapist who gets you. Visit BetterHelp.com/ABC Radio to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/ABC Radio.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
I am not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV or radio. And if I were one, I doubt I'd have the brilliance of Connie Rice or Ketanji Brown Jackson. But thankfully, I've got KBJ on tape and I got Connie in real time. But I think that it was a deep conversation. And as brilliant as KBJ is, I think part of her brilliance, I say all the time, Connie, is that you have to have a usable intellect. I love Cornel West. I love Connie Rice. I love other guests on this program because their intellect is clear. It's obvious, but it's a usable intellect. So the KBJ makes this argument in a way that every one of us can follow. And again, Brett Kavanaugh is saying that there ought to be a time limit on race remedies, and she's saying, but not on Section 2. It's a tool. It's a measuring stick. It's a tape measure. So Section 2 ought not be gutted as these conservatives are attempting to do. If you watch any of the oral argument yesterday, it was abundantly clear to me, regrettably, that they're going to wipe this thing out. They're going to gut it. And so here she is going on the record once again, explaining why this is not the answer to the prayer. With that, I digress. Connie, take it away.
Hey, I'm preparing a wake for the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go.
Just get ready to sit shiver.
Yeah, we are sitting shiver for the Voting Rights Act. That's why I love Connie. We sitting shiver right now for the Voting Rights Act. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, we're a little ahead of the game here, Tavis. We're calling the result before they, just after they've heard the arguments. But I think I bet my cat that you're right that they're going to at minimum pare it back so that, and here's the thing, we're going to know that the dice is loaded and that we have a MAGA cell on the Supreme Court if they race to get this opinion out first so that there's time for the Republicans to redraw all the maps before the midterms so that no matter how many Democrats get out to vote, we can't take the House back, or they can't take the House back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got my eye on, is this the first opinion? Do they even accelerate the issuance of this one, or do they issue it in the middle of the summer when there'd be less time for a lot of the legislatures to redraw the maps to favor the GOP?
Yeah.
That's one indicator I'm following. But to get back to what you were talking about.
Hold on. Before you go forward, though, no naivete here, and I think you made the point quite clear, but I want to lay on this just one more game because it's a brilliant point. Everything Connie says is brilliant. But coming out the blocks here. We are used to the Supreme Court, typically rendering their decisions in June before they take their summer recess. They're back now from their summer recess, their 3-month hiatus. But to your point, if they speed the clock up and they issue this earlier than usual, to your point, say before June, which they could do, obviously, or in June, it still becomes the first one they push out. Tell me more about how at that point we have any faith whatsoever. And some of us have already crossed that line. But whatever little faith, whatever little respect we have left for SCOTUS, if they were in fact to do that, I hear your point, then you got a MAGA sale on the U.S. Supreme Court. But how then do we continue to abide in a country that brags about itself being a democracy if they do something like that? Because you're right, at that point, all bets are off. They've made their point. They've made their position clear if they make that move.
I think so. They'll say it's just coincidence. But here's the thing. If they do issue that opinion early and there are enough maps that can be redrawn and what should have been at least one House of Congress being turned back over to the Democrats, which would be a spike strip against juggernaut that is dismantling what little democracy we've experienced. Because you got to remember, the United States was not a full democracy until the Voting Rights Act passed in 1965. So we've only had at least the voting part of a full democracy. The rest is aspirational, as James Baldwin said. We're just achieving America. We ain't there yet. It's just a vision.
Oh yeah.
We've been in the business of achieving America for 400 years.
Yeah.
At least African Americans have. So if they do it and they can redraw those maps, that is going to be a real bellwether indicator. Because Tavis, if they're supposed to be in the business of calling balls and strikes, like Robert said at his confirmation hearing, they become the umpire. They're on the other team, and they're the head coach of the other team. They're just changing the playing field. They're tilting the playing field for the other team.
Yeah.
So this is really serious. But just to go back to so folks know what we're talking about.
Sure.
What Janae Nelson, the African American Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, she was the one arguing on behalf of the plaintiffs. Who were saying, defending this district, saying this second district that expanded the voting opportunity of African Americans who live in that congressional region of Louisiana. What the court found last spring, or didn't find last spring, but this case was argued in March, which was that you've got a huge population of African Americans in Louisiana. A court looked at the fact that there was only one congressional district, Cleofields District, one congressional district for all those black folks. And the court said there's got to be something wrong here. Section 2, the Geiger counter, the measuring tape that the KBJ was talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
The alarm went off for this judge, and NAACP chapters challenged the fact that there wasn't a second district drawn because there was a population that justified it. Is the population big enough? Yes. Is the population connected enough compactly geographically between Baton Rouge and New Orleans? The answer was yes. You have a corridor, right? The third factor is the Black voting pattern politically cohesive enough? Do African Americans vote together often enough to be considered politically cohesive? Well, the voting records say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Fourth criterion, is there enough white bloc voting? In other words, is there such white resistance to voting for African American selected candidates that you can say that it's racially bloc voted? That the African American vote is blocked by white votes over and over and over again. Well, all you had to do was look at the statistics, which is that Attorney Nelson put before. 85% of the time, white Democrats won't even vote for a Black Democrat. So that is a locked-in white bloc voting bloc. So all 4 of the factors were satisfied. The court said, draw a second district. That's what's being challenged here, just so people understand.
Yeah.
And your questions about, anytime a big case is told to re-argue, they said re-argue Roe, re-argue Brown v. Board of Ed that ended apartheid. They argued that one twice. They ordered Citizens United argue twice. That was my first time when they said they're going to order this one argued again because it was argued in March.
Mm-hmm.
I said, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And my second marker is going to be if they get this opinion out early.
Yeah. I called Connie yesterday and said, are you watching any of this? And she had seen some of it. And you put your finger on something that John Roberts did yesterday, said in this oral argument that got your attention. Remind me what that was.
Yeah, the alarm went off for my head on this one too. Not only did they ask for re-argument, Roberts, out of the blocks, said, well, I know I voted in a similar case in Alabama where we ordered a second map to be redrawn. We ordered a second map to enlarge African American voting opportunity in Alabama. That was a case just last year, or maybe 2 years ago. And he comes out in the argument yesterday and says, yeah, but that case should not control here. It's the exact same issue, Tavis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he's backtracking, he's backpedaling on a decision that he and Kavanaugh made together and gave that map the thumbs up. And he's saying, well, no, this is different. It's not different. Then he was just signaling at the beginning of the argument that he's ready to reverse his stance on this section of the Voting Rights Act.
No naivete here, but if you voted differently in a similar case just a year ago, why the backtracking now? What are we missing? Why, to use your word, what makes this frame different?
I think that the consolidation of GOP power, I think that the permission structure to sort of jet propulsion, this drive toward re-legitimizing white nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
It's the impunity. Remember I said WEI?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Entitlement and impunity. That's what they're arguing for. They don't want to have to pay a price for feeling like they should control the country, that we should not move toward multiracial democracy. Multiracial democracy is not their vision of this country. It's about straight white male Christian nationalism is really what the movement we're in. And they're trying to limit everybody else's participation. It's not just African Americans. You've got living while brown ICE raids. Anybody who looks Latino getting picked up because they're brown and they shouldn't be here, and so they're going to get. They have yanked American citizens, 12 American citizens, off the streets and tried to ship them out of the country. So understand the moment we're in. That frame shifted, and I think the court is feeling a little easier about going with Clarence Thomas. Now, Clarence Thomas, right out the bat on this argument, he doesn't think the Voting Rights Act ought to operate at all. I think he'd be fine with black people not being able to vote and women not being able to vote, to tell you the truth. Mm. He wants to go all the way back. But we're in a moment where, what's striking to me, Tavis, look at this. They're saying that race-based remedies to undo documented anti-black discrimination, that should have a timeline. In a moment when we just elected a white nationalist, a billionaire who misses apartheid, and they're gaslighting us that the country's colorblind. Okay, so the remedies have to have a limit, but white nationalism and anti-black racism do not. They're limitless. They go on forever. They're built into the struts. They're built into the Constitution. So that stuff can stay permanently. And in fact, you can have a president openly saying, I am going to give asylum to white South Africans who miss apartheid. We're going to import them, and we're going to deport all the Latinos and Haitians and African immigrants and, anybody who's brown. Okay?
Yeah.
So if that's not, and plus, I try not to vote for people who are endorsed by the Klan and by neo-Nazis, just me,
Yeah.
But, if those folks are comfortable, what makes you think? I mean, declaring the U.S. colorblind in this frame, the frame we're in a white nationalist frame, is like declaring the Playboy Mansion sex blind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or declare, talking about the United States politics being free of race. Politics are a proxy for the racial battles. Always have been.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like saying, Vegas has no gambling.
Yeah. Connie says two things now to get my attention. Let me try to unpack it right quick, and we'll continue when we come forward here. The first is, and I mentioned this to Connie, I think when I called her yesterday to ask her, Connie, you watching this? What do you give me some insight right quick before we get to this tomorrow on the show? But I said to her, and she said, wow, I didn't realize that. Yes, I was reading something yesterday that reminded me, and I looked it up, and sure enough, on the day that they are hearing this argument to finally gut the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, just gut it altogether. And you heard her say a moment ago that Clarence Thomas made it clear, abundantly clear, he don't think it ought to work, period. So no surprise to any of us that Clarence Thomas is not in support of the Voting Rights Act. No question about that. But the irony of it is that yesterday was his 34th anniversary of being confirmed for the U.S. Supreme Court. So, I mean, talk about, again, irony. Yesterday is 34 years since he was confirmed for the U.S. Supreme Court. And on that very day, they're hearing a case about voting rights that Clarence Thomas is going to lead the fight against once they get behind closed doors and start discussing this particular case. Again, I'm trying to find another word for irony, but there you have it. 34 years ago yesterday, Clarence Thomas confirmed for the U.S. Supreme Court. If you were around then as I was, you recall those hearings and Anita Hill and Hal Heflin and Joe Biden and all of that nonsense that went down. He squeaked by, and he's the longest serving member of the court now at 34 years as of yesterday when they were hearing a case on voting rights. The other thing that Connie puts her finger on right now, and if you missed this yesterday, you need to go back and look at it. I'm reading a headline. It broke yesterday while we were on the air. Trump considers overhaul of refugee system that would favor white people. The proposals would transform a program aimed at helping the most vulnerable people in the world into one that gives preference to mostly white people who say they are being persecuted. That's what Connie was just referencing. She wasn't just making that up. That was a huge story yesterday that Donald Trump is going to change the way we do immigration. No longer favoring the most vulnerable people in the world who need asylum, but favoring ones that give preference to the mostly white people around the globe who say they are being persecuted. And so you combine that reality with this impending decision by the U.S. Supreme Court, and you get to where Connie just arrived, that multiracial democracy, or the notion of it, is in trouble in this republic that we call America. A great deal more to cover with Connie Rice when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The U.S. Supreme Court weighed in on Louisiana's new majority black district map. Black Louisiana Congressman Troy Carter said the decision will impact black voters.
If struck down, Louisiana could lose its 2 majority black congressional districts, silencing black voters.
The state's attorney general says the law banning racial discrimination in redistricting is unconstitutional. Vice President J.D. Vance is defending a leaked young Republican group chat filled with racist and violent messages, calling the members young boys telling edgy jokes. He says offensive jokes shouldn't ruin lives despite bipartisan outrage.
And Kim Kardashian opened up about her toxic marriage to Kanye West on the Call Her Daddy podcast, saying she didn't feel safe emotionally or financially. She recalled him giving away Lamborghinis during an episode and said she has no regrets about leaving. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Hard rock style is coming to the Central Valley, just 15 miles south of Bakersfield off Route 99. You'll find world-class gaming and entertainment. Less drive time equals more playtime. The all-new Hard Rock Casino Tejon, opening November 13th.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers have been a dominant team in the postseason without getting much offense from superstar Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani has been in a serious slump in the playoffs. In the Dodgers' last 6 playoff games, Ohtani is 2 for 25 at the plate and has struck out 12 times. Ohtani went through an extensive batting practice session on Wednesday. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts said he's keeping Ohtani in the leadoff spot in the batting order. The Dodgers have a 2-0 lead against Milwaukee in the National League Championship Series. Game 3 is today at 3 o'clock at Dodger Stadium. The Rams have been in Baltimore all week after beating the Ravens on Sunday. They stayed on the East Coast to prepare for Sunday's game in London against Jacksonville. The Rams have been practicing at Camden Yards, the home stadium for Major League Baseball's Baltimore Orioles. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33 and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yay! Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
And the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
Tavis Smiley and the uber-brilliant Connie Rice. In case you've just tuned in, we've been talking for the better part of this hour at the onset of today's program about the oral arguments yesterday that were heard by the U.S. Supreme Court on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, and whether or not it has seen its last vestiges, its last good days. And there is obviously a divide on this court, 6-3, conservative versus liberal. And KBJ did her best yesterday. She did her level best yesterday, trying to make the argument that Section 2 is but a tool, but a measuring stick, a tape measure. And it ought not to have a limit on it. And Brett Kavanaugh and others are arguing, of course, that race remedies ought to have a time limit. But I saw this argument yesterday, Connie, or at least the part I saw when I got off the air. My mind went back to Sandra Day O'Connor. And you recall the time limit that she suggested that we put on affirmative action years ago. She said maybe 25 years from now, and we got to year 20. They didn't even wait 25, got to year 20, and then they gutted affirmative action. But just talking about this notion, this conversation, this idea of time limits on race remedies in this country.
It's part of the delusion.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that the dominant group never sees that it is actually the biggest racial cohort. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, if you look at the racial studies that study how race and perception work, if you have a room of all Caucasian Americans, all European Americans, they will to a person say there's no racial stuff. When you and I look at an all-white room, we see the biggest racial tribe that is, the dominant tribe. So, and the tribe that this country enshrined its superiority in its founding documents, the Constitution. They can't see that. They think, I'll never forget this professor who said, Ms. Rice, I don't dislike you. We were debating affirmative action. A white professor at a sort of C+ level college. And he said, he's a gentleman C's professor, but he had all these young, brilliant women and people of color and women of color coming up the PhD pipeline. Long story short, he just felt very threatened by it. He says, I just want to go back to the days when there was no race discrimination and no sex discrimination. I couldn't help myself. I said, was that the Jurassic or the Paleolithic era? Right? Yeah. I couldn't stop myself. The radio host was laughing so hard he had to go to a break, right? Just like you now. So I came back, but I knew what he meant. Mm-hmm. What he meant was I didn't have these feelings of insecurity and I didn't feel threatened as long as my world was all white. Yeah. So the idea that there would be a time limit on racial perception, cross-racial fault lines and misunderstanding. We are segregated, Tavis. Yeah. When you organize your society to create ghettos and barrios and Indian reservations, that is structured segregation. That right there is a pillar. That's a strut of racial, not just division. That's actual racial suppression. It descends from the plantations, containment suppression. So, it's not just in our DNA. It's that it's like a herpes virus. It's now in full eruption with shingles on top of it. We've got white nationalism, actually taking over the machinery of our government. And why should people care about this case? Tavis, you and I care about it because we're civil rights wonks, and we like to think we're intellectuals. But here's the reason, everyday folks. I know I'm a pseudo-intellectual. You call me all these names, but I'm a pseudo-intellectual.
You own that.
I claim it.
Yeah, go ahead.
But here's why it matters. You can quibble with the quality of our representation, but the fact that we have black elected officials, enough of them to have a congressional black caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus is going to be able to meet in a porta potty if this thing goes through.
Decimated.
All right?
Decimated.
Exactly. At least 12 majority black districts are going to disappear.
At least.
Cleo Fields will lose his district.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
So even if, and just full disclosure here, my business is suing black politicians. I'm not a Democrat. They hate me. I sued half of the black politicians in LA County, So this isn't about me having, my friends, but that's not how I'm simply looking at the numbers and the impact, the role that the Voting Rights Act has had on black representation. It's been a revolution. And to roll it back now in the middle of the surgence of white nationalism is the height of delusion, or it's the height of cynicism.
To Connie, yeah, maybe both, Connie, maybe both. To Connie's point about the data, I think this audience knows this. I always brag about how bright this audience is, and for that I am grateful, trust, and believe. But the CBC has its highest number now at 62. You may recall a few weeks ago during the Congressional Black Caucus annual legislative, gathering in D.C. back in September, Jesse Jackson Jr., former member of Congress, now running again for Congress, was on this program, and we were talking about this in detail. But we now see the highest number of CBC members ever at 62. You hear Connie suggesting that number is at least going to get cut by 12. Jesse went even deeper than that. But this is the irony that Connie points out. We, after all these years, finally work our way up to having a CBC with 62 members in it. And at this very moment, they are going to cut that number, I believe, in half and maybe even less than that, because when you combine the gutting of the Voting Rights Act and the redrawing of these lines, these Democrats, let's just be clear about it, these white Democrats are going to be interested in taking care of themselves. As these lines get redrawn in states all across the country, their priority as white Democrats is to protect their seats, to protect themselves. And so Democrats, hear me on this, Democrats are going to end up sacrificing other Democrats. Democrats are going to eat other Democrats as they fight about these districts. So you combine that sort of Democratic Party infighting about how these lines are drawn with the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, then you got a real problem. That number ain't going to be 62. It ain't going to be nowhere near 62 by the time they get done with this. It's going to take some years for this to completely roll out. But just watch that number dwindle. I am sad to say that. As I sit in this chair, God willing, for a few more years, we'll watch that number dwindle from a height of 62. Put a pin in that for now. What I want to pivot to now, Connie, in the time that we have left here, is what happens when they gut it. So in other words, what do we do instead of the voting rights? That's the question, Connie.
Yeah, and I think that is the question. And I think you want to know something? Let's go back to the great Lonnie Guinier, the greatest voting rights advocate this country has ever produced. It's because of Lonnie Guinier and her teams that the Voting Rights Act actually got fleshed out and enacted in the real world. And she passed way too soon, and she was my mentor, full disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to be a Voting Rights Act lawyer until I realized that my clients were dying from gunfire and I had to do violence reduction instead. But you ask what's instead. That's the question. Because it was never a construct. It was never a regime of laws that was really meant to realize the full power of any community. Okay? It opened the door for us to be able to go. At least we weren't having to count jelly beans in a jar, and we didn't have poll taxes. Okay, we got rid of what our grandfathers, some of our great grandfathers and mothers had to put up with in the South. So it was a vast improvement. It's because of the Voting Rights Act that we had the first Black president. So I don't. The Voting Rights Act is the crown jewel of the civil rights, the second civil rights movement. The first one was post-Reconstruction, which they retracted. This is the second retraction of African American advancement in civil rights. There's always going to be a retraction. If this is the big retraction, Tavis, let's reimagine it. Let's say, okay, y'all, you don't want to do that? Let's do something even more expansive.
Hold that thought, Connie. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. I'm sorry. We'll talk about that more expansive part when we come forward. I can tell she's about to drill down, and the clock was not in her favor. When we come forward, we will let her drill down on what that other thing looks like. You're listening to the brilliant Connie Rice on Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Tavis Smiley with a final word here about the upcoming Left Coast Forum on Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. As you know by now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries. Fighting for Black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts, and building patient power, from seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA, theater as a force for change, voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing, racism on the left, building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County. Committee for the First Amendment, and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Let me tell you about this new pretzel cheddar club. Hey, I'm Carlos.
And I'm Ebony. And a little thing we love about the Chick-fil-A Pretzel Cheddar Club
is the tangy Dijon with the pretzel bun. It takes it to a whole nother level.
It goes perfectly with the chicken and the cheddar cheese and the bacon.
Man, you know how much you love bacon. And I love the different varieties. Grilled, spicy, original. It gets you nice and excited for fall.
Order the Pretzel Cheddar Club with Cherry Berry and Sprite for a limited time on the Chick-fil-A app. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number and put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement. Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Connie Rice. Okay, Connie, you were just about to make your point about what that something different, that something more radical thing is when they gut the Voting Rights Act as we know it.
Well, Tavis, this is the tension. You're always going to need race-specific, race-centric advocates. You've got to have our warriors that grab the reality of most African Americans' experience. It's just it's a spectrum, but you got to have race-centric, race-conscious advocates and arguments. And I'm not suggesting that is over, but if it politically isn't working, then go to race neutral. Lonnie Guinier first proposed the proportionate rank voting. You saw that it produced Mamdani, right?
Right.
And so in New York City, they got rank voting. You get to vote, you rank your candidates, and if your first choice doesn't go, then it rolls over to your second choice. And so you have vote. It spreads the votes out across by political interest. And so that's how did Mamdani defeat the political machinery of the New York Democratic machinery? They were in shock, right?
Yep.
Well, it's because you had that different voting scheme. That's one strategy. It's not race-centric. It's not party-centric. It's not partisan. It's about it gives power to the voters. It returns power to the voters rather than to the political parties. Second, what Martin Luther King Jr. talked about, Tavis, he talked about the politics of the Grand Alliance. And you'll never forget in that Playboy interview that he did in 1960, I can't remember what year because I'm 70 and I can't remember dates anymore. But he did that Playboy interview, which made big news back then.
Yep.
And in it, he talked about the poor white men and the poor black men, if they don't get back together, because you see in the coal mines, you had black coal miners and white coal miners bonding together to fight big coal. And white coal miners used to say, everybody's black in the mines. We're all black down there.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this tight alliance. Well, big coal and the federal law enforcement, the FBI, broke up that alliance. They made it racialized. They did Willie Horton stuff, and they broke that apart. Martin Luther King Jr. said, if we don't start aligning with the agendas for upward mobility, for human dignity, for the right of workers, for fair distribution of opportunity as well as public wealth, if we don't get that agenda and start building, a coalition It's not focused on race, but it's focused on upward mobility, justice, dignity. It's what Reverend Barber talks about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we don't create those kinds of alliances defeat party factions. It's really self-interest without the hatred. And so it's creating a new political movement less focused on specific African American rights. Because to be honest, Tavis, we don't really have the representation we think we have. We have black candidates, but we don't pay for them.
Mm-hmm.
Other communities pay for our clients, our candidates,
yeah.
and that's why our interest. But why is that? Because money drives this system. The Supreme Court put our elections and our voting rights on the auction block. It gets auctioned off, highest bidder. Elon Musk has 10 times the weight you and I do, probably 1,000 times the weight at this point. The billionaires are controlling the machinery and the agenda and the slate of candidates that we can vote on. That's why Mondani scares them. They didn't control him.
Yep.
So it's those kinds of strategies, Tavis, and I'd be fascinated to hear whether this contrast between race-centric and race-neutral for you.
No, I think you make it makes sense. And I've been studying this for some years now, and I am warming up to, given what happened to Mondani with Mondani in New York City, I'm warming up to this notion of ranked choice voting. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna do an entire hour on that one day, because it's complicated for people to understand how it actually works. It's really not that complicated when you understand it, but it takes some time to get it. So we may do an hour on this program one day just about ranked choice voting and why that may be, as Connie just intimated, one of the solutions, one of the alternatives, if and when they gut the Voting Rights Act. Two things right quick here. I want to just concur with what Connie said a moment ago. To my mind, Washington is and has been, quite frankly, for some time now, bought and bossed by big money and big business. That's just a reality. Washington is bought and bossed by big money and big business. But she mentioned the King interview, and I haven't read that in a while. I'm going to read it myself again tonight, now that Connie has reminded me of it. But it is, I think, to my mind, perhaps the best interview, certainly one of the best interviews that King ever did while he lived. If you've not ever read his Playboy interview, it was January 65 to be exact. January 65, just Google the Playboy interview, MLK, and just read that. Take some time to read the Playboy interview. Dr. King was not in Playboy. He did the Playboy interview. And that would be Playgirl anyway, but I digress on that point. The point is that it's January 65, the Playboy interview with MLK. If you've never read it, do yourself a favor today. Download it, read it. Our remaining moments with Connie Rice, when we come forward, we'll talk about the predictions for this weekend's massive No Kings turnout. Does pushback, does protest really matter in this moment? That's the exit question for Connie when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Why does Tavis say when we come forward? Because he's not going back. And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org. CityNationalBank.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
So this weekend, Connie, is the next iteration of these No Kings protests. Pretty robust turnout when they first did this, and so this is the second go round, if you will. I guess my question is whether or not in a moment like this, given all we've discussed in this hour, Donald Trump seems to be on a roll. He's feeling himself after this Israel-Gaza situation, and I wonder the role of protest, to your mind, in this present moment.
It's everything. Next to the lawsuits, it's everything right now.
Right.
I would love to see 1 million people in every city turn out and shut down D.C., because when you have an autocratic juggernaut rolling through and the rule of law is, as we knew it, is gone, the constitutional order is gone, they've corrupted DOJ, they're corrupting the military. This is a full-on autocratic juggernaut, whether you know it or not, whether you're getting it in your news or not. And the only thing to stop it is what South Korea did when the military rule was threatened. Those folks didn't leave their streets. In Serbia, they didn't leave the streets. They shut down the autocratic move. So that is critical. The lawsuits are critical. This is critical. Yeah. Making sure that people understand we have to draw a line in the sand here, or you can forget about voting. He's going to declare the Insurrection Act, close the courts down, and close the voting booths.
To your point now, no naivete here, as I often say in the asking of this question, but what happens in a society that regards itself as a democracy? And you and I have had the discussion many times about the Madisonian framework that we have, but not quite yet achieved. But what happens in a country that calls itself a republic, that calls itself a democracy, when there is no trust in the executive branch, there's no trust in the legislative branch, and then there's no trust in the judicial branch?
Well, you've had a collapse. We're witnessing the collapse of the constitutional framework, the Madisonian framework. He destroyed separation of powers because Congress decided to become a handmaiden. Supreme Court decided to become a butler. For autocracy, you got a handmaiden and a butler. What happened to separation of powers? What happened to independent? The lower courts are holding the line along with the advocates. You've got Mark Elias, you've got the ACLU, you've got NAACP. The lawyers are putting the spike strips down in the courts, and the courts are going with the injunctions. They're saying, no, you can't nationalize it. You can't fabricate an emergency and declare Antifa a gang when it isn't even an organization, and declare some kind of emergency. He's looking for an emergency. He can't even point to crime anymore because we've had the lowest crime rate. They're manufacturing pretexts for militarizing the cities and shutting. Then he's building up to declaring the Insurrection Act.
Yeah.
And once that happens, Tavis, he can end the elections. We might not have another election. So people need to get in the streets. They need to make it known, because that makes the news. Yeah. It penetrates even Fox News.
Well,
and you want to know why it works? Because the Republicans are out there declaring that peaceful protesters, the No Kings protesters, peaceful protesters, they've declared them terrorists. Yeah, they're scared of this. Yeah, that tells you it's important.
Yeah, he warned us. He told his crowd a year ago, vote for me this one time, you ain't got to vote again. He said it publicly. Just vote for me this one more again, and you ain't got to do it again. So he's on record saying that. And to Connie's point about militarizing cities, are you watching this stuff in Chicago? It's getting ugly in Chicago, the militarizing of these cities. I'll leave it there for now. Connie, love you. Talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Love you back. Bye.
All right, we go from Connie to Cornell. That would be Dr. Cornell West. At the top of the second hour, you're listening to Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The U.S. Supreme Court weighed in on Louisiana's new majority Black district map. Black Louisiana Congressman Troy Carter said the decision will impact Black voters.
If struck down, Louisiana could lose its 2 majority Black congressional districts, silencing Black voters.
The state's attorney general says the law banning racial discrimination in redistricting is unconstitutional. Vice President J.D. Vance is defending a leaked young Republican group chat filled with racist and violent messages, calling the members young boys telling edgy jokes. He says offensive jokes shouldn't ruin lives, despite bipartisan outrage. And Kim Kardashian opened up about her toxic marriage to Kanye West on the Call Her Daddy podcast, saying she didn't feel safe emotionally or financially. She recalled him giving away Lamborghinis during an episode and said she has no regrets about leaving. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Hard rock style is coming to the Central Valley, just 15 miles south of Bakersfield off Route 99. You'll find world-class gaming and entertainment. Less drive time equals more playtime. The all-new Hard Rock Casino.